Story 1. I'd get very rich by buying courtside tickets and gambling on basketball games. Story 2. Every claw machine from here to Nebraska would be empty. Story 3. How much force can you generate? Could I take something that weighs 100 pounds and move it at 100 miles per hour? That would allow you to do a lot of impressive things. For example, move a car by striking it with a blast of air at the speed of sound. What about heavier items? Moving fractions of items weighing more than 100 pounds, multiple items at once, or repeated impacts. I cannot fly, but I can jump 3 times higher than a normal human and do not take fall damage. So many possibilities. Story 4. A few politicians might have a lot of problems speaking in public, especially if it happened on television. Nothing that would kill or seriously injure anyone. More like pie-in-the-face incidents, signs falling down, microphones flying out of people's hands, being bonked on the head by light objects, preferably, seeming to be thrown by perceived allies. It would seem like they had an occasional poltergeist. I would watch more cable satellite public affairs network coverage and televised addresses, and hopefully some people would speak less in public because it was personally humiliating. I would be constantly amused. Story 5. My parrot, who can no longer fly, would certainly fly again. She would be so happy. Story 6. Move over, Kim Jong-il. There is a new world's best golfer. Story 7. I'm picturing myself standing outside the front door, fingers to my temple to focus, and summoning the cat from wherever he is gone. A floating black and white tubby baby. I would also pass by homes that inspire the thought, what are they cooking? And craft and steal a plate of their food. I can also see myself attempting to lose an unhealthy amount of weight so I could levitate my own body. I have lived many adult years around 105 pounds, so it is not that dangerous. On the topic of human weight, I could levitate my sister across the Atlantic to be in our home country at any point in the year instead of just summer. Hopefully this levitation process has controlled speeds because that trip would take a while. Story 8. I would not have to worry about throwing my back out at work anymore. Story 9. Does this mean I can stop objects no matter how fast they are moving as long as their weight is under 100 pounds? Or does it mean their force must be less than 100 pounds? Story 10. Stupid people would trip and fall down a lot more. I am too petty to be trusted with powers. Story 11. For starters, I would know exactly how much 100 pounds is in kilograms. Story 12. I would probably use it to become a quarterback in the National Football League. I would make a throw even though I have a normal person's weak arm, then use telekinesis to give it a tight spiral and move it into my receiver's hands. I would practice the move enough to make it look natural. I would be a first ballot Hall of Famer with the best career passing statistics of all time and probably win a few Super Bowls as well. The best part is that even if my team makes a mistake, like a receiver blowing a route and a defender is right under the ball to intercept it, I can manipulate the ball so it sails past the defender or knocks out of their hands. I would allow a few interceptions in meaningless situations so my statistics do not seem too perfect. But in any big game, I would have 0 interceptions, prevent opponent recoveries on fumbles, and put the ball in my receiver's hands every time. Story 13. I would spend my free time making life a living hell for carnival game workers. Story 14. This will be really great for my side hustle moving items under 100 pounds. Story 15. I would probably be a supervillain similar to Poison Ivy, someone who is actually a good person but appears evil. Story 16. That would be perfect, as it fits exactly what I need as a technical professional. Story 17. I would gain weight because all the snacks would float to the couch. Story 18. Jefferson Twilight. Hold on. I'll use my psychic powers. He strains to no avail. Outrider. Why don't you hand it to me all regular? Story 19. I would try lifting animals starting with squirrels to know what 100 pounds are in everyday terms. Then I would know the conversion rate. Story 20. I would date someone who weighs 95 pounds, and we would try various fun activities, laughing out loud. Story 21. Make money as a real magician by performing something that is truly magical and not just an optical illusion. Story 22. It takes far less than that limit to constrict a vital artery. Story 23. Does this mean I can fluctuate my own weight by 100 pounds and apply up to 100 pounds of force to anything? Story 24. Can I use it to supplement my strength? For example, using my kinesis to make a 120-pound object effectively weigh 20 pounds? Could I use it on myself to nearly have my weight? I could probably jump much higher, and it would definitely make me a better skateboarder. Also, I am absolutely going to cheat at roulette. I am taking out a loan and putting it all on 37 black. Story 25. Does it support indirectly lifting objects placed on top of it? If so, I could use objects as an improvised hoverboard. Story 26. How precise is it and how much force or speed does it produce? Can it be used as a force field? Story 27. It would eliminate most of the problems I face in day-to-day tasks due to my chronic health, especially when my condition was worse. Story 28. Buy a skateboard and ride it to work like Marty McFly to save on my gas bills. Story 29. I am not sure how I would use it for good in life, but several of the neighbors' awful toddlers who try to chase and catch my cats would receive some very exciting, if short-lived, lessons in flying. Story 30. My life? Not much. I'll be visiting many places. Meanwhile, other people may experience some bad luck. Story 31. Due to issues, namely my dog getting old, I would no longer have to pick him up by hand. It would probably be gentler overall. Granted, he is very close to the weight limit at 95 pounds. Maybe a few trips to casinos to play roulette, winning enough each round so I only need 1 or 2 wins at the big tables. No need to be greedy. Story 32. I feel that questions like these should exclude requests about making money, because that will dominate the comments unless you actually have telekinesis and want an idea to make money. Story 33. As much as I would like to say, yay, crime time, and use it in nefarious, financially beneficial ways, I would probably just get much better at doing the laundry at a normal pace instead of the 10 working days it takes me to put things away because of my neurodivergence. Also, the cats would no longer be able to get behind the television cabinet. Air jail every time. Story 34. You would be dead because any government that found out about this would kill you. Having the power to kill anyone without leaving a trace would require extreme cleverness to avoid detection. Story 35. 1. I get rich. 2. I'd have to choose between continuing my hero's journey or starting my villain arc. Story 36. 1. How far does it work? 2. Are there lotteries that still use balls to choose numbers? Story 37. I would gain weight. This would take bed rotting to a whole new level. Story 38. My job stacking fiberglass pipe insulation just became a whole lot easier. Story 39. I could hurry my chocolate Labrador outside before he vomits on the carpet again, rather than pleading with him to go, since he is making that herp sound. Story 40. I wonder what would happen if a 99-kilogram magnet were spun around at relativistic speeds. Only one way to find out. Story 41. I would get very fat. I would never have to get up for the remote or to get a beer from the fridge. Laughing out loud. Story 42. I would give in to my food cravings so quickly. Imagine having a slight craving for chips. Suddenly a bag of chips floats beside you. Do you crave ice cream but do not have any at home? No problem. A $5 bill floats out your window, and shortly after, a pint of your favorite ice cream flavor floats through the window. Story 43. Causing other drivers to apply their brakes at four-way stops when they attempt to run the stop. Story 44. Many people would have 99-pound anvils dropped on them from great heights. Story 45. I would try to become severely underfed as a guy weighing around 80 to 90 kilograms. Being able to float everywhere would be worth it. Story 46. No speed limits. That would easily make me the most dangerous person. I could probably burn away the atmosphere if I were careful, though. Story 47. Those left lane campers would end up on the side of the road. Story 48. The number of sudden Marilyn Monroe-style wind gusts would be phenomenal. Story 49. With no range limit specified, I am sure I will find a way to profit immensely. Story 50. Honestly, crime. 100 pounds is a lot of cash. Just slip a few 20s out of the cash registers at Walmart when they open, slide them along the floor and up the leg holes of my pants. Then boom, walk out, go home, pull out the haul. Small time stuff, of course. Then again, hitman? No prints on the gun if you are not touching it. Literally just take a gun from some guy's security guard to off the target. Collect the bounty. Lots of ways to make money. Story 51. My arms can lift over 100 pounds. From now on, I will only lift my girlfriend while she is standing. Story 52. Tripping so many rude kids. Yeah, everyone here has great ideas, both good and evil. I want chaotic neutral. Story 53. Tell my wife I have a big surprise for her if she loses 6 pounds. Story 54. With no velocity limit, there is a vast range of possibilities. I could generate force fields that stop bullets, since bullets have relatively low mass and high speed. Light is composed of photons that have no rest mass, and with control over photons I could create persistent darkness, concentrate beams of light to produce thermal effects, or project large-scale messages and appear as a deity. Control over objects under 100 pounds is extremely powerful because many things fall below that threshold. I could rearrange molecules to trigger fusion or fabricate devices and technology. My life would change profoundly because telekinesis limited by weight still allows very fine control over a vast number of objects. Story 55. My fiancée weighs 90 pounds, and she already gets scared when I pick her up because she is not used to being that high off the ground. She is 4 feet 8 inches tall. She would probably be even more frightened if she were moved by telekinesis. Story 56. Depends on your definition of mild. How far away can this effect be enacted? Do I need line of sight? How fast or how forcefully can I move objects weighing less than 100 pounds? Story 57. If weight were the only factor, you would become functionally extremely powerful. It may not seem like much to move a 20-pound ball of steel until you move it at 1/10 of the speed of light. Then you have a planet buster. Story 58. Rip money from automated teller machines through the slot. Use telekinesis to destroy cameras via their cords. Story 59. There was a character in the comic series Rising Stars who had a similar power and noted that it would take 11 pounds of force on the carotid artery to initiate brain death. They eventually used their power to bring up fertile soil beneath the desert in the Middle East to make the land much more arable. There is a lot of potential for this power. Story 60. With practice, you could secretly and seamlessly push a die in your favor. Get rich from playing craps. I would not want to reveal this ability. There are too many dangerous and powerful people out there. Someone is going to capture or kill me. Laughing out loud. Story 61. You could be a supervillain. Unless someone takes you by surprise, you could win any fight easily, and you could use the enhancements to become a fast runner, swimmer, or jumper. You could also be a formidable covert operative in fiction. With line of sight, you could defeat opponents at a distance or cause someone to fall from a balcony or down a flight of stairs. You could be an incredible thief in a story, slipping money and jewels from pockets, taking necklaces and bracelets, removing wads of cash from banks, or taking chips from casinos. Story 62. You're saying I could punch anything with 100 pounds of force at any time, invisibly? Story 63. Groceries would be brought into the house with far less effort on my part. Story 64. Can I apply up to 100 pounds of force to something, for example to strike someone or to push an object over? Story 65. Well, I am currently recovering from back surgery after a car accident. So immensely. Story 66. It depends on how much control I would have. I would love to do the dishes while sitting on the couch. Story 67. I always found such limitations stupid, even when Luke could not lift his X-Wing with the Force. You either have telekinesis or you do not. There should be no limit to it. Move the whole galaxy if you want to. Story 68. I would both be lazier and more motivated. I would probably do more chores depending on energy use, especially since I am not getting my hands dirty. Once I get used to more domestic tasks, I would probably start to test its limits. That is when things might get wild. Story 69. New business model. Moving cash out of banks and diamonds out of jewelers. Story 70. It depends on range. You could just put the microphone through a politician's head when they're at an event. Story 71. I want land to keep horses. It would make transporting supplies easier, such as feed, hay, and other equipment. Story 72. It depends on the range and whether I need line of sight to affect things. One small benefit is that it would make cleaning much easier, especially if it has enough finesse to lift dust from complex and delicate surfaces. Story 73. Keep causing random men to become erect in awkward situations and watch the chaos unfold. Story 74. I could be the best magician and perform the best party tricks, from levitating beers to floating turds. It may not be the most glamorous career, but I could earn a reasonable amount of money and party forever. Story 75. A 40-year-old pitcher who has not seriously picked up a baseball since high school suddenly can throw the craziest stuff. The Rays win every World Series until I die. Story 76. I would gently push over children who came near people I do not like. Story 77. This is extremely high, 100 pounds. So every action currently performed, except lifting objects over 100 pounds, can be done mentally. I can move almost all my furniture, fire a gun remotely, and pick up and clean without moving. Story 78. Which word did you mean by sage? Ode? Story 79. Go to Walmart and make one of the gates you walk through when you enter swing shut and hit me. Make a huge scene out of it. Settle for millions. Story 80. For the first few hours, I would use it to toss small balls of paper or other tiny harmless objects at people to confuse them for my own amusement. Then I would realize I could do much more with it and use it to subtly cheat at carnival games and perform simple magic tricks. In short, I would waste it. But hey, no shelf would be too high, so I would definitely get a lot out of it. Story 81. Catching wayward chickens would offer less exercise, but floating my chickens around in view of my neighbor's cameras would provide a lot of entertainment. Story 82. Okay, I need to lose some weight to go below 100 pounds and then I can fly. Story 83. I would be able to stop saying achio. It's rather tiresome. Story 84. I would make the undergarments of a party hostess leap 1 foot to the left. Story 85. One thing the show heroes did with Skylar that I always thought was genius, but that was never expanded upon in other telekinetic characters or intellectual properties, was this. If you had telekinetic powers, you could force molecules to rip apart from each other, essentially allowing you to cut anything in any way you wanted. Individual molecules weigh less than 100 pounds, so besides the obvious lifting applications, there is another way to use this ability in this purely fictional theory. Story 86. Grocery store God mode. I'd summon far-off carts, snag top-shelf items, and float the remote to the couch while my coffee cruises in like a tiny, unidentified flying object. Story 87. There is a range in distance over which one can act, and a limit to how finely one can control it. For example, pinching an artery in the brain of a politician on the other side of the planet, just saying. Or someone missing a step when getting off a plane. Story 88. I'd be the world's best darts player, and I imagine that would come with quite a bit of money from competing in world tournaments. I would never miss a throw. It would be incredibly difficult for anyone to know I was using this power. Story 89. I am going to assume that the under 100-pound limit is the only restriction here. First, I am learning the best way to manipulate my clothing so I can fly and have super speed. Second, I am loading up on pebbles to use as an impromptu weapon. How would this change my life? I could be a superhero and live out my childhood dream. I could do something valuable with my life. That is enough for me. Story 90. Define mild telekinesis. Are we talking about a 10-foot range? I would absolutely use it to refuel my car in winter. Story 91. I would probably die young because I would use it for everyday nonsense like getting the remote and making dinner. I would become a fat blob on my couch, using my powers to make life so easy that I would die young of heart disease. Story 92. As a disabled person, it would be a big change. I would not need to ask supermarket staff to reach items on the top shelf. I would not need to worry about being unable to carry the bins out. Washing up and other housework would be easy. It would also give me the push to lose weight, since I would be able to wheel myself around without exhausting my arms, especially on inclines. Story 93. Please turn it off for me. I am having disturbing thoughts and I do not want to harm anyone because of a foolish idea. First, I would attend therapy sessions to learn to use my abilities with caution. Story 94. I would transfer my shower thoughts into print, publish all my genius ideas, and build an empire. Story 95. I would fly to work. Also laundry, socks, shoes, and other items. Story 96. People often forget to ask about the range of telekinesis and whether remote vision is included. Story 97. There are about $2 million in cash rewards offered by skeptical groups around the world for evidence of paranormal phenomena. I would enter all of them and demonstrate the phenomena under laboratory conditions. I would receive at least $1 million after taxes, and I would probably earn more from a publicity tour. This could help science and possibly religion for all of humanity. It would certainly be easier than trying to rig sports events, casinos, or commit crimes. I would gladly offer my talents to a Penn and Teller style show to see what expert illusionists could do with real magic in their acts and to observe what they create. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.